Did you know the king of rock and roll carried suitcases packed heavier with books than clothes on tour? Or that he gave away hundreds, maybe thousands, of copies of his favorite spiritual books to friends, family, and even total strangers? Elvis Presley, the man who shook the world with his hips and voice, was also a voracious, searching reader who underlined passages, made notes in margins, and spent countless late nights devouring texts that explored the biggest questions of life. Forget the jumpsuited icon for a second. There was a quiet, contemplative side to Elvis few truly saw, and his bookshelf tells a fascinating story. Number 5. Books that reached for the heavens, and sometimes other dimensions. Okay, let's just put it out there. Elvis was deeply spiritual. Like really, really deep. Forget just Sunday service. This guy was on a lifelong quest for answers about God, the universe, and everything in between. His personal library at Graceland wasn't just for show. It was a working collection, and a huge chunk of it was dedicated to spirituality and religion. We know he read the Bible. Of course he did. Raised in the Assembly of God Church, gospel music was his first love, and the Bible remained a constant companion throughout his life. He reportedly owned several copies, including a well-worn King James Version Ease. Friends often saw him reading it, sometimes late into the night, looking for comfort or guidance. He didn't just read it, he seemed to absorb it. Priscilla, Presley mentioned how he could quote scripture and often turned to it during troubled times. He gifted Bibles too, sometimes personalized, seeing it as a foundational text. But Elvis didn't stop there. Oh no! His spiritual curiosity was huge and went way beyond traditional Christianity. He became fascinated, especially from the mid-1960s onwards, with Eastern philosophies and religions. This wasn't a casual interest. It was intense. His hairdresser and spiritual confidant, Larry Geller, introduced him to a whole new world of thought, and Elvis dived right in. One book that became incredibly important to him was Paramahansa Yogananda's autobiography of a yogi. This wasn't just light reading. Elvis reportedly read it multiple times. It tells the story of Yogananda's life and his encounters with spiritual figures in India, exploring concepts like Kriya Yoga and the guru-disciple relationship. Elvis was apparently captivated by the idea of self-realization and the potential of human consciousness described in the book. He didn't just read it for himself. This was one of the books he bought in bulk to give away. Imagine getting a copy of Autobiography of a Yogi handed to you by Elvis Presley himself. Wild. Then there was The Impersonal Life. This anonymous spiritual text supposedly channeled talks about the I Am presence within everyone, the divine spark. Elvis resonated deeply with its message of connecting to a higher power within oneself. Again, this was a book he frequently gifted. Reports suggest he carried stacks of it with him, ready to share its message with anyone he felt might benefit. He underlined passages heavily in his personal copies, marking sections that spoke directly to his own search for meaning and identity beyond the colossal fame that often felt like a cage. His exploration didn't shy away from the complex or controversial either. He delved into Theosophy, a movement founded by Helena Blavatsky that attempts to synthesize Eastern and Western religious and philosophical ideas, exploring esoteric knowledge and ancient wisdom. Blavatsky's works, like Isis Unveiled and The Secret Doctrine, are dense, challenging reads, dealing with cosmology, symbolism, and the evolution of consciousness. The fact that Elvis tackled these weighty tomes shows the seriousness of his quest. He wasn't just looking for easy answers. He was wrestling with profound concepts about the nature of reality and humanity's place within it. He also read works by Jiddu Krishnamurti, the Indian philosopher, who spoke about psychological revolution, the nature of mind, meditation, and human relationships. Krishnamurti encouraged self-inquiry and independence from external authority, ideas that might have appealed to someone living under the constant scrutiny Elvis endured. This spiritual reading wasn't just a phase. It continued throughout his life. Visitors to Graceland in his later years often found stacks of spiritual books by his bedside or in his private study. He was constantly seeking, constantly reading, constantly trying to understand his own life, his purpose, and the mysteries that lie beyond the material world. He discussed these ideas passionately with close friends, sometimes talking for hours about God, karma, reincarnation, and the search for enlightenment. It reveals a side of Elvis far removed from the stage persona, a thoughtful, questioning soul using books as tools to explore the infinite. The sheer volume and variety of his spiritual reading paint a picture of a man profoundly engaged in a quest for understanding, using ancient texts and modern spiritual guides alike to navigate his extraordinary and often overwhelming life. He wasn't just the king of rock and roll. He was a king on a spiritual pilgrimage, with a library card as his map. Number 4. Unlocking the secrets. Numerology, psychics, and things that go bump in the night. Get ready, because this is where things get really interesting. Elvis wasn't just looking towards traditional heavens. He was also peering behind the veil, exploring the mysterious, the esoteric, and the downright spooky. His curiosity knew no bounds, extending deep into the realms of metaphysics, the occult, and psychic phenomena. If it promised hidden knowledge or a glimpse into the unknown, chances are Elvis wanted to read about it. Numerology was a big one. The idea that numbers hold vibrational meanings and can reveal insights into personality, destiny, and life events fascinated him. He was particularly interested in the work of Caro, William John Warner, a famous palmist, astrologer, and numerologist of the early 20th century. Elvis reportedly owned and studied Caro's books, like Cairo's Book of Numbers. He apparently applied numerology to his own life, analyzing names, dates, and events for their hidden significance. Friends recalled him discussing the numbers associated with himself, his family, and pivotal moments in his career, searching for patterns and meaning. Did he find comfort in the idea of a hidden order beneath the chaos of fame? We can only present the fact he studied the numbers intensely. Life after death was another major preoccupation. Understandable, perhaps, given the early loss of his beloved mother Gladys, and later, the pressures and isolation of his own life. He devoured books exploring the subject, searching for evidence or philosophical arguments for the continuation of consciousness beyond the physical body. Titles dealing with near-death experiences, reincarnation, a theme also present in his Eastern readings, and communication with spirits filled his shelves. He read books like Life After Life by Raymond Moody, which documented near-death experiences, adding fuel to his fascination with what lies beyond. This interest naturally led him to explore psychic phenomena and the powers of the mind. He read about telepathy, clairvoyance, psychokinesis, and spiritual healing. Books detailing the lives and abilities of famous psychics like Edgar Cayce, The Sleeping Prophet, captured his imagination. He was intrigued by the potential of the human mind to perceive beyond the five senses and perhaps even influence reality. This wasn't just passive reading. There are accounts of Elvis and his friends occasionally experimenting with things like seances or attempting forms of psychic communication, driven by the ideas encountered in these texts. Helena Blavatsky's theosophical works, mentioned earlier, also fit squarely into this category. The Secret Doctrine, in particular, is a cornerstone of modern esoteric thought, delving into cosmic cycles, hidden masters, and arcane symbolism. Its complexity didn't deter Elvis. It seemed to draw him in further. He was grappling with ideas about hidden realities and ancient wisdom traditions, looking for keys to unlock deeper understanding. Another significant influence in this area was the Seth material. Channeled by Jane Roberts, these books purport to contain teachings from a non-physical entity named Seth, discussing the nature of reality, consciousness, God, and the power of belief in shaping personal experience. Titles like Seth Speaks, The Eternal Validity of the Soul, were found in Elvis's collection. The concepts presented, that we create our own reality through our thoughts and beliefs, resonated with themes he encountered in other spiritual and self-help readings. It offered a framework for understanding personal power and the connection between the inner world and outer circumstances. This dive into the esoteric wasn't about escaping reality, according to those who knew him during these periods. Larry Geller, in particular, framed it as part of Elvis's search for deeper meaning and control in a life that often felt out of his control. He was looking for explanations for the extraordinary phenomena of his own existence, the intense fame, the adulation, the isolation. These books, dealing with hidden forces, destiny, and the power of the mind, offered potential frameworks, alternative ways of seeing the world and his place in it. Imagine Elvis, the biggest star on the planet, sitting up late at Graceland surrounded by books on numerology charts, psychic predictions, and communications from other dimensions. It shatters the simple image of the rock and roll star. It shows a man actively engaging with complex, often controversial ideas, driven by a powerful need to understand the unseen forces he felt shaping his life and the world around him. He wasn't afraid to explore the fringes, to ask the weird questions, and to seek knowledge in places most people wouldn't dare to look. The king wasn't just ruling the stage. He was exploring the cosmos from his armchair. Number 3. Finding the Power Within, Self-Help, and the Quest for Purpose. Beyond the cosmic and the spiritual, Elvis also turned his reading attention inward, focusing on books designed to help him understand himself and harness his own potential. This wasn't just about positive thinking. It was a deep dive into philosophy, personal growth, and the search for inner peace amidst the whirlwind of his life. Think of it as Elvis trying to find the instruction manual for being well Elvis. One book that consistently appears in accounts of his reading is Khalil Gibran's The Prophet. This collection of poetic essays covers life's big themes: love, marriage, work, joy, sorrow, freedom, pain, and self-knowledge. Its gentle wisdom and philosophical reflections clearly struck a chord with Elvis. He didn't just read it, he absorbed it. Like his favorite spiritual texts, The Prophet was another book he loved to share, frequently giving copies away. Its messages about authenticity, inner truth, and navigating life's complexities seemed to resonate deeply with his own experiences and questions. Perhaps its lyrical, non-dogmatic approach offered a different kind of solace or guidance than the more structured religious or esoteric texts. He was also drawn to books that emphasized the power of the mind and positive thinking. While specific titles are sometimes debated by biographers, the themes are consistent. Works exploring the power of the subconscious mind, affirmations, and visualization techniques appeared in his collection. Authors like Joseph Murphy, The Power of Your Subconscious Mind, or Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich, though often associated with wealth, its core principles are about mindset, touch on concepts that Elvis reportedly discussed and tried to apply. The idea that one could shape their reality through focused thought and belief was a recurring theme in his reading across different genres, linking back to the Seth material and some spiritual teachings. For a man whose life seemed simultaneously blessed and burdened by destiny, the notion of taking conscious control through mental discipline held obvious appeal. This quest wasn't just about feeling good, it was often tied to a search for purpose. Accounts from friends suggest Elvis wrestled with questions about why he had been given such extraordinary fame and talent. What was he supposed to do with it all? Books that explored finding one's path, living a meaningful life, and understanding one's unique contribution likely formed part of this strand of his reading. Philosophical works that grappled with existential questions. Why are we here? What is our purpose? Would fit naturally into this search. He read books on psychology and understanding human nature, trying to make sense of himself and the people around him. Living in the unique ecosystem of his entourage, the Memphis Mafia, and dealing with managers, promoters, fans, and family dynamics presented constant interpersonal challenges. Books offering insights into motivation, behavior, and relationships could have been practical tools as much as philosophical explorations. Consider the sheer pressure Elvis lived under. The constant demands, the lack of privacy, the weight of expectation, the adoration that could feel suffocating. It's entirely logical that he would seek out books offering strategies for coping, for finding inner calm, for building resilience. Self-help, in this context, wasn't about quick fixes. It was about survival and finding a stable center in a life that was anything but stable. He underlined passages relating to inner strength, overcoming adversity, and finding peace. He reportedly tried meditation techniques and practiced affirmations learned from his reading. This wasn't just intellectual curiosity. It was an active attempt to integrate these ideas into his life, to find practical ways to navigate the complexities of his existence. The image emerges of Elvis not just as a seeker of cosmic truths, but as someone deeply engaged in personal development. He was using books as guides, as mirrors, as sources of strength. He was trying to understand the man behind the myth, to reconcile the public image with the private self, and to find a sense of agency and purpose in a life that often seemed dictated by external forces. His reading in this area shows a vulnerability, a humanity, and a proactive effort to grow and find peace that adds another layer to the legend. He was building his own internal Graceland, brick by literary brick. Number 2. Lessons from the past. History, heroes, and how we got here. While Elvis's reading is most famous for its spiritual and esoteric depth, his interests weren't solely focused on the unseen or the internal. He also had a documented fascination with history, particularly American history, and the lives of figures who shaped it. The king, it turns out, liked to read about other leaders, pivotal moments, and the long arc of human events. His library contained numerous books on American history, with a special focus on the Civil War. This period seemed to hold a particular fascination for him. Growing up in Mississippi and Tennessee, the legacy of the Civil War was part of the cultural landscape. He reportedly read biographies of key figures from that era, studied accounts of major battles, and was interested in the causes and consequences of the conflict. Perhaps the drama, the larger-than-life personalities, and the themes of division and unity resonated with him on some level. Beyond the Civil War, he showed interest in the founding of the nation and the lives of presidents. Books about figures like Abraham Lincoln, a man who led the country through its greatest crisis and bore immense personal burdens, were known to be in his collection. It's not hard to imagine Elvis, another figure carrying the weight of immense public expectation and scrutiny, finding points of connection or lessons in the stories of historical leaders who navigated treacherous paths. He admired strength, conviction, and leadership, qualities often explored in historical biographies. His interest wasn't limited to just American history. He read about world history, ancient civilizations, and other significant historical events. This suggests a broader curiosity about humanity's journey, where we came from, the patterns of rise and fall, the enduring struggles and triumphs. Reading history provides context, perspective, and stories of resilience, all things that might have appealed to someone living a life as unique and often isolating as Elvis's. While perhaps less documented than his spiritual reading, this interest in history adds another dimension to his intellectual life. It shows a desire to understand the world around him, not just its spiritual underpinnings or psychological workings, but its tangible past. Knowing where things came from, culturally, politically, socially, provides a framework for understanding the present. For Elvis, whose own life became a significant cultural marker, understanding the historical currents that shaped his world might have been a way of making sense of his own place within it. Did he see parallels between the challenges faced by historical figures and his own? Did stories of past struggles offer perspective on his present ones? We stick to the facts. The books were there. They were read. His Graceland library contained volumes on historical subjects, indicating it was an area he actively explored. This interest also connects to his patriotism. Elvis served in the U.S. Army, often spoke of his love for his country, and famously met with President Nixon. His reading of American history likely reinforced this connection, deepening his understanding of the nation's ideals and struggles. He wasn't just passively inhabiting history. He was actively engaging with its narrative through the books he chose. Compared to the passionate, hours-long discussions about spirituality or metaphysics reported by friends, conversations about history might have been less frequent or intense. Yet the presence of these books confirms it was a genuine area of interest. It rounds out the picture of Elvis the reader, showing a mind curious not only about the eternal and the internal, but also about the factual, documented story of human civilization and the figures who left their mark upon it. He wasn't just looking up to the heavens or deep within himself. He was also looking back, learning from those who came before. Number 1. The Way of the Empty Hand. Martial arts, philosophy, and discipline. You know, Elvis loved karate. Right. He didn't just dabble. He was serious about it, eventually earning an 8th degree black belt. But his passion went way beyond the physical kicks and chops. Elvis was deeply invested in the philosophy and discipline behind martial arts, and this fascination heavily influenced his reading choices, especially from the late 1950s onwards after his time in the Army. His intense study of karate under masters like Ed Parker wasn't just about self-defense or looking cool on stage, though it definitely helped with the latter. Elvis saw martial arts as a path to self-improvement, mental focus, and even spiritual understanding. This perspective drove him to read books, not just on techniques and forms, but on the history, philosophy, and spiritual dimensions of various martial disciplines. He devoured books detailing the principles of karate, kung fu, and other fighting styles. These texts often explored concepts like qi, life energy, mental stillness, the importance of breath control, and the integration of mind, body, and spirit. For Elvis, the physical training was intertwined with this mental and philosophical exploration. The discipline required in martial arts, the repetition, the focus, the respect for tradition and hierarchy, seemed to appeal to him, perhaps offering a structure and a sense of control that was sometimes lacking in the chaotic world of show business. He read about Bushido, the samurai code of conduct, which emphasizes virtues like loyalty, honor, self-discipline, and courage in the face of adversity. The ideals of the warrior, committed to a path and living by a strict code, might have resonated with his own sense of dedication to his craft and his search for guiding principles. Books exploring Zen Buddhism and its connection to martial arts also found their way into his hands. The Zen concepts of mindfulness, living in the present moment, and finding enlightenment through direct experience complemented ideas he was encountering in his other spiritual readings, but grounded them in the physical practice he was so dedicated to. Think about it. Martial arts philosophy often stresses inner peace through outer discipline, finding stillness in motion, and understanding conflict, internal and external, to achieve harmony. These weren't just abstract ideas for Elvis. They were principles he actively tried to embody through his rigorous training and study. Friends and members of his entourage often spoke about how seriously he took his karate, not just the fighting aspect, but the respect and philosophy that went with it. He saw it as a way to become a better, more centered person. His instructor and friend Ed Parker was a significant influence, not just physically but intellectually. Parker himself wrote books on Kenpo Karate, delving into its principles and philosophies, and Elvis undoubtedly studied these works closely. Their conversations likely extended beyond physical techniques into the deeper meanings and applications of martial arts principles in life. The books Elvis read on this subject would have covered a range of topics: biographies of legendary martial artists, histories of different styles, guides to meditation and mental conditioning related to martial practice, and explorations of the ethical and spiritual codes associated with warrior traditions. Each book added another layer to his understanding and commitment. This reading wasn't separate from his other interests. It connected directly to his spiritual quest and his search for self-mastery. The discipline of martial arts offered a tangible way to practice principles of focus, control, and mindfulness that he was reading about in spiritual and philosophical texts. It was a physical manifestation of his inner search. So when you picture Elvis executing a perfect kata or a lightning-fast strike, remember it wasn't just physical prowess. Behind the movement was a mind steeped in the study of martial philosophy, a mind that had read deeply about the way of the warrior, the path of discipline, and the search for harmony through strength, both inner and outer. His martial arts books weren't just manuals, they were another facet of his lifelong quest for knowledge, discipline, and meaning, explored through the powerful lens of the warrior's way.